Welcome to Ghana Great and Strong. And this evening, we are going to have a conversation. It's a conversation on starting and running businesses. Many people from time to time have asked me, well, how do I start a business? If I start one, how do I get one going? How do I get it running? How do I manage it? How do I get it to be successful? And so we're going to begin a series of presentations on this Ghana Great and Strong in a number of different parts. So this is the beginning part, and it's meant to inform. It is also meant to educate people, let people know what is it that some of us have learned. And so what we're going to talk about today, I can tell you, is not from any textbook. Textbooks are good, but what I want to talk to you about this evening is not about any textbook material. It is also not from any classroom or lecture room professor or lecturer. Lecturers are good, professors are good. They talk from their learning experience. But I want to talk to you from, if you will, the theater or from the lecture room of practical life. That is from essentially my personal experiences. So I want to share what I have learned, what I have gone through with you. And I have chosen as the beginning topic the subject of failure. And I'm doing that obviously quite deliberately, because many people, they think, I get up, I start a business, it is successful, it makes me money, I get all sorts of benefits, and everything is good. Well, starting a business is also about failure. And I want to deal with the topic of failure and address it so that everybody understands what we are talking about. And anybody who also wants to get into business, then they need to be prepared to deal with the thing called failure. You know, when I give lectures or talk to people about entrepreneurship or about starting businesses, I always let people know that failures do happen. They are mostly and routinely something that is normal. It happens. So failures happen. It's just that you shouldn't make failures become a habit. Failing cannot be a habit, because when it becomes a habit, it means that what you start, what you do, is not successful. Something that is not successful is not going to help you or help anybody else. And you will not have a business if that business fails. And so what we're going to talk about this evening, we'll do it in bits and pieces here and there. So I'm telling you right now why we're doing this, why we're going to be talking about starting and running businesses. And then we'll deal with the matter of, well, do you really have to start a business to consider yourself successful? Do you need to run your own business to consider yourself and for others to consider you as someone successful? Well, we'll talk about that. Then we'll talk about why companies fail, why businesses fail. And then finally, we'll address the topic examples, and I'll give you some examples of businesses that have failed. And I'll give you some from my own personal experience. A couple of businesses that I started, and maybe a couple of businesses that other people also started that I know of. So that we can begin this little journey about starting and running businesses, in my view, the right level, the right way. This is Ghana Great and Strong. That's what we do here. What we do is to talk about anything, do anything, bring any topic here, something that will make Ghana, our country, great and strong, and something that will help all of our people to become prosperous. And that is why we are talking about this particular topic this evening. I am your host. My name is Papa Kwesi Indom. We will take a break, and when we come back, we'll begin to talk about, do you really have to start your own business to be successful? And that one too, I will talk about it from my own personal experience. We'll come back.
Insurance akwenya hodo so kono so free ne ya nenya ntiase pfa yen smart child plan any passage plan so so nkoyi ho Ggns life obia brabo hu hia
Welcome back to Ghana Great and Strong. And this evening, we are talking about starting and running businesses. And we're going to deal with the subject matter of failure. But before we get to failure, I'm asking the question, do we all have to be entrepreneurs, start our own businesses, run our own businesses to consider ourselves successful? Well, I will tell you, I worked for other people for more than 15 years before I left to be running my own business. Now, did I have ideas? Did I have some thoughts that I want to run a business here and there? Yes, I did. Did I feel that it was a necessity for me to run my own business? No, I didn't. Did I set a goal that in 15 years, in 20 years, I wanted to be running my own business? No, I didn't. I didn't. Another time, I will talk about how I personally got into starting my first business, my second business, and so on and so forth. But I want to give you some examples. In our country, Ghana, we have a number of people that have been very successful. And they become successful because they were successful leaders within organizations, some of them local, some of them international. Well, the person that comes readily to mind, Mr. Ishmael Yamson. Mr. Yamson, that many people know, was the CEO of Unilever. He became the chairman of the board of Unilever. He's known in many parts of the world. He's traveled widely, broadly. He has been a respected business leader, thinker, and he's done well for his country and for himself. And he comes from a small village in the central region and went to Apam Secondary School, went to the University of Ghana, and so on and so forth. And over the years had worked. I believe he worked with an entrepreneurial attitude. That is where he went to work. It was UAC, became Unilever. He applied himself to improving the fortunes of that company. So he was recognized as a leader there. So he did well and rose to the level where he then became chairman, CEO, and so on and so forth, and a respected person in society. There are many, many other people. This morning I was watching something on television about Mr. Jack Welch. Now, those of you who talk about international companies, Mr. Jack Welch, he is someone who for a very long time was the CEO of GE, the GE company, that General Electric company, now known simply as GE. GE is not the reason why they dropped the name and just called it GE, is that it's no longer to do with appliances or electrical appliances. No. GE even had a company called GE Capital that did financial investments and other things. And that company financed other companies. GE was into broadcasting. GE was into insurance and banking and into so many areas, all because of the vision of this one man, Jack Welch, who transformed the company to become something big, something worldwide. And so it's not just from the energy field, but in other areas as well. So this Jack Welch, he came to own shares in GE because of his being in a leading position in the company, and because the company's stock was also sold on the stock exchange. So he bought shares, just as many people ought to be able to buy shares in the companies that they work for. But he was not the one who started GE. He was not the owner, but he ran the company, ran it brilliantly, ran it successfully, and he has etched a name in history. When you talk about business leaders, the name Jack Welch is there amongst the top. You come locally to Ghana as well. You will find many other people who did very well, not even in business, but who have done very well in not, and I don't just want to say politics, but in public service. Public service. Many people done very well that way. There's a lady, Mrs. Gloria Nikwe. She worked well in many areas in public service in Ghana, served her country well, rose to the top to become a principal secretary, and later on applied her experience to a rural bank in the Kwapim area. She became one of the leaders who helped to start the ARB Apex Bank for rural banks in Ghana. Distinguished herself, and she has a name, and she has a name that's recognized, that is respected in many different places as a successful woman. There are many others. If you go back again, and those who remember the old Pioneer Tobacco, remember the name Richardson. Mr. Richardson headed up Pioneer Tobacco in Ghana, PTC. And while he was alive, he was recognized in many places. He also grew up from humble circumstances and became a recognized, celebrated leader in business, in industry, in Ghana. Did he start Pioneer Tobacco, became British Tobacco, and all of that? No, he didn't start it. But he helped and led in running that company, gained a name for himself, very successful. So, yes, we are talking about starting a business. We are talking about running businesses that you start. But I want to make it clear, as we are starting this and beginning this journey, that I don't want to give anybody the impression that it is only by starting your own business that you can become successful or be considered someone successful. I have known many other people in the private sector, in the public sector, who have worked, their lives, lived wonderful lives, were able to educate their children, have every and any comfort that you want in life, and rose to the top of their professions. They rose up there. Some didn't get to become CEOs or managing directors or general managers. Some were managers. Others became, the top engineers. And others also became perhaps the best salesperson. But they lived well. They did well for themselves. And which is also the reason why we want to talk about failures today, because we want people to understand that just as you can fail working for a business, you can also fail when you start your own business. And indeed, the failure rate, if you talk about it, you'll find that the failure rate is actually higher amongst those who start their own businesses. So I want people to understand this point. And the point I'm trying to make still is that you don't have to start your own business in order to consider yourself or to be considered a successful person. Now, I have deliberately avoided the realm of politics because becoming the head of state, the president, the prime minister, becoming the speaker of parliament, becoming an MP, becoming a minister of state, those things, they take some other considerations, in order to be able to get there. And so I don't want to deal with that. But I want to deal with those things that require an individual's own abilities, their own performance, their own leadership qualities. And if you do well, if you perform your job well, then those things will propel you and move you up. And the kind of jobs that you can have, and you can have until retirement. Becoming an MP is something, if there are terms for parliamentarians, every 4 years you have to go and seek election. And there's a hazard. You may go back or you may not. If you're a president, you're a president for the term of office. In some countries it's 6 years, in some countries it's 5, some other countries it's 7. In Ghana it's 4 years. So after the period, you have to go back and present yourself to the electorate. They may send you back and they may bring you back. Okay, so that's not what I'm talking about. If you're a minister of state, well, you work on the wishes of the president. But in any case, after the president's term, you go back home. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about where you have a job. You have a job working for Ggns Bank. You have a job working for GCB. You have a job working for Coca-Cola. You have a job working for Leroy Cables or any company where you can start from somewhere and move up and move up and move up and hopefully someday get to the top position of the company. Or you work for an accounting firm or an engineering firm or a construction firm, or you're a teacher and you can work your way up. There are several people who have been in teaching positions and they have done very well, just like those who taught me in school were celebrated, and we all remember them. I give you an example. There's one of our teachers, Mr. Plus Otwe. You know, he was a teacher. He was also a soccer coach and whatever at St. Augustine's. Many of the people who met him as I did, we celebrate him because he did well and became successful in what he did. Okay, so you can have success in many fields. The late coach C.K. Jemfi is celebrated in his profession. If you take Abedi Pele did not own the soccer teams that he played for, but he played well and he did well. Tony Yabua played well, did well. It wasn't his business. He didn't start those football clubs. So I'm still trying to make the point to you that you don't have to start a business in order to consider yourself a success. So we'll take a break and then we'll come back and I'll begin to address the issue of failure. This is Ghana Great and Strong. And I'm your host. My name is Papa Kwesi Indo.
Mountain di chia wadofo ya wo ye ho kanyina ena afi yesi akagina mu eboabo bada ache di sua ho ban ɛnam yɛ insurance akwanya ahodoɔ soronko no so. Free ne ya nenya ntiase pii ɛfa yɛn smart child plan ɛne passage plan ɔsom soronko yi ho. GN Life obiara brabo ho hia.
Well, welcome back to Ghana Great and Strong. We are talking about starting and running businesses. And I'm dealing with the topic failure. So let's get into it. You know, depending on who you talk to, some say 80% of businesses that are started fail. Some other people say 1/3 of businesses started fail within 1 year. Some say about half of them fail within 2 years. So the numbers vary. 1/3, 50%, 80%, some say fail. But the fact of the matter is that businesses that are started also have a tendency to fail. So if you're going to start a business, and the reason why I am starting this series with the topic or subject failure is that we must all understand that you can either succeed or that you fail. And the experience is that a number of businesses that begin small, medium, big, that we start fail. So failure is something that all of us must deal with. And why companies fail? Well, companies fail for a number of different reasons. But you see, I from my personal standpoint, I have seen a number of businesses, watched them, consulted for them, and so on and so forth, and watch them either succeed or watch them fail. And so I always begin with what I say is your own personal driving forces that you must have always. Your own personal driving forces. If you do, I'm not saying if you do, you will succeed by all means. But I'm saying that your chances for success will be higher if you have your personal driving forces, those things that push you on and make you continue to do whatever it is that you want to do. And if you don't have them, I'm saying that your chances for failure are greater than usual. And from my point of view, you know, in Ghana, there was a company called SD Karam. It was there for a long time. Then it failed. We must ask ourselves, why did that company fail after such a very long time? There are some companies that have started with a bang. I mean, big noise, big impact. And in Ghana, there are some. Because some of those companies are still there, I can't and should not mention their names. Started with a bang, big noise. Some of those companies are gone. There are a couple of companies on the technology front in Ghana. On the technology front, they also made huge entry noise. In actual fact, one or two of them made huge impact at the very beginning. Now those companies are not doing so well. They're having difficulties. having difficulties, is that something unique? Is that something strange? Is that something unusual? No. And so I'm saying to everybody that if you want to start a business, if you have started one, you must look at failure. You must look at difficulties. You must look at the problems that may come. Instead of always having someone write business plans for us, or we ourselves doing our own calculations, whether it's on a napkin, toilet paper, a sheet of paper, notebook, whatever. Quite often we say, okay, I want to get into something. And this is something that I want to get into. This is what I need to put in. What's the minimum that I've got to spend? Then we start calculating, what is the revenue that we can get? What's the profit that we can make? And quite frequently, we don't spend an equal amount of time on what are the difficulties that we may encounter. What if nobody buys my product? What if the service that I am selling, what if it fails? What if the people that I have, they steal my idea? My employees, they steal my idea and they go and do it themselves somewhere else. What if that happens? What if other things happen? If it is a building, what if problems come up? What if there's a fire? So we must take a look at the incidence of failure and what if. What if? And so if there's a what if involves, well, insurance. Knowing that accidents happen. Knowing, if you're going to drive a taxi, it's your business. Well, you must find out. Is that taxi business, is that taxi insured? Do you have anything, if you've done your calculation, but what if fuel prices go up? Does your profit margin go away? What if parts, the cost of parts, what if they go up? What are you going to do? And if somebody steals your money and you've spent all of your money to start this business, well, what are you going to do? So I'm saying that most businesses started encounter difficulties, encounter challenges. It is the responsibility of the person starting it. It is that person's responsibility to think through, what if those problems happen? And if they happen, what is it that he or she is going to do to ensure that they get back on track? But I started off by saying you must have your own personal driving forces. And let me tell you, as I've been saying to people all over the world, that my personal driving forces are discipline. They are discipline and faith, then family values, and then public service. In that order. Sometimes I put faith first, discipline second. But it's a discipline to keep to my faith, so which one comes first doesn't really matter. So I'm always thinking through, now why these things? Discipline, because if I don't have the discipline myself, then whatever it is that I'm trying to do is bound to fail eventually. Now, let me explain. And I also want to explain to you that quite often businesses fail because of the leadership or lack of it, or the type of leadership that is applied by the person who started the business. If you start a business, who are you going to blame? You can have employees, but things begin from you. If you sell bread The bread seller, the one who bakes the bread and sells the bread, that person is a businesswoman or a businessman. But if, somebody comes off the street and she says, Kojo, come, and gives some of the bread to the person, you don't pay. Somebody else is walking by, hey, Atta, come, give them some of the bread. Or they sell some of the bread and there's money there. And somebody is crossing by, the person looks like they need money. Or they come to beg for money. Or they say, I have a problem, and they take some of the money and give it to the person. Well, the employees are watching. Maybe the employees are the children. Maybe the employees are other people that they have hired to help with the baking and the selling of the bread. Those people, they are watching how you are giving things away left and right. And so, when an opportunity comes, they might also say, Mamiokua, this is what she does. So, I will also give something to somebody. Before we know it, you are giving, they are giving. You are taking, they are taking. And your costs then goes haywire. It crosses all boundaries and there's no money there. So the leader, what the leader believes in, what the leader, the starter, the one who begins the business, what they do, the discipline that they apply, that is what makes things work or not work. And what is some of the discipline? Well, if you have a business and you know that you must pay VAT, but you decide that, I have this new business, and so instead of going to pay VAT, let me collect money on the side and escape the tax person and not pay. So some things I write down, other things I don't write down. And then you teach it to your employee, maybe to the accountant or to whoever. And then you're doing it. Well, what are you doing? You are teaching those people in discipline. So they also say, if Kojo himself or Mr. Mensah himself, this is what he does. Well, they also find different ways to also evade. They find other ways to also subtract monies. They find ways to steal. Not, in this case, from the taxman or taxwoman or from government, but from the business owner, because you are teaching them in discipline. I hope everybody gets what I'm talking about. So why do businesses fail for me? In big part, it's because the leader himself or herself does not project the right attitude, the right discipline, and so on and so forth. That's why I put as a personal driving force, discipline. Discipline. So then the next thing I talk about is faith. And I do spend quite a bit of time every time to talk about faith. Why? It's not because I'm a Christian. Somebody could be a Muslim or a Buddhist. Or they go to their neighborhood shrine or whatever. But they believe in something. They believe in something that tells them that, something is right and some things are wrong. And because there are some things that are right and other things that are wrong, that you do well by other people. If you need to do something for an employee, you give it to them. Don't cheat them. If you have to give something to a customer, you also don't cheat your customer. You keep cheating your customers. Customers, in the end, they tend to know, and then things stop. Businesses fail as a result of that. And then sometimes, why? Why does a business fail? Well, sometimes a business will fail because someone just started copying Well, they found that somebody was selling cocoa, and the cocoa was, was hot. Everybody would come and buy. Or someone sells wachi, and everybody will buy the wachi. So they say, if Kofi can sell cocoa and be successful, then I should also be able to sell cocoa. Or if Mamekua sells wachi, and the wachi is wonderful, and everybody comes to buy, well, I can also go and buy some beans and rice and whatever, and also come and sell. So just copy it because someone else is doing it. Okay? Well, you don't know how the person, cooks her wachi, how the person has cultivated a clientele, and what is it that they do to continue to be successful. So you just watch, and you just go and do by watching. Well, quite often, those, if you will, copycat things, they don't work because you don't really understand the foundation. Someone says, but we are the workers. This man, he produces furniture. But we, the carpenters, we are the ones who do the work. So quite often they will say, the furniture sells for 1,000 Ghana cedis. But we the carpenters, we can produce the same furniture. We can do it for 600. So they will also go and set shop somewhere. But they don't quite understand how the person has been able to put the furniture company together successfully and do what is it that he does or she does to be successful. So they'll go and start. And at the very beginning, he might look very successful. Then things dry up. So after you sell to the customers of your master or your employer, well, then you have to go out and find other ones. And they find that it is difficult finding and maintaining customers, and then the business goes away. So that happens. I know some people who have said, but I went to school with this one. Well, even when we were in school, he was always last, and he didn't do as well as I did. So how come he can be successful doing this? I can also do it. Maybe do it better than him or better than her. Well, you can't judge anything that way. So by just imitating someone, failure happens. Failure, it does happen. And so we must have good grounds, good and important grounds to be in business, and we must have our own personal driving force. And if that personal driving force is not there, then the chances are that the business might go under or would be a failure. Now remember, and you've noticed that I haven't talked about money. I have not talked about capital. I have not talked about any of those things, because the amount of capital you have does not necessarily say you are going to succeed or fail. I am talking qualities of the leadership, the person who has started that business, whether it's cocoa production and selling, bread production and selling, furniture production and selling, or a consultant or an accountant. I know an accounting firm somewhere in West Africa, I can't name them, where the professionals decided that, but the partners, they are enjoying too much. But they are the ones who go and do the jobs. So they can also go and get the jobs and make the money, take the big money themselves. So they started their own company. They left, started their own company. Well, when they went to look for business, the people will ask them, well, give us a cut. And so some will demand 1/3 of the fees. Some will demand 15% of the fees. And they were essentially paying bribes to get jobs. Well, what they didn't realize was that the owner or the owners, the partners who were in charge of the firms that they left, had developed their relationships over a long period of time. They weren't paying those bribes. And they also had ways of managing the money. So when the crop of customers ran out, they also ran out of business. And all they knew was, I give a bribe and I get a job. When the bribe taking and bribe giving stopped, and people, they couldn't go and bribe everybody. So the quality of and the professionalism did not become their hallmark. So they were hoping to just get jobs by giving something in order to take jobs. And soon enough, the business collapsed. Failure. It happens. There are many different ways that we encounter failure. We're going to take another break, get some messages, and come back, and I'll give you some examples of some that were failures that turned around to become successful. This is Ghana Great and Strong. I am your host. My name is Papa Kwesi Indo.
Sika mumu hwa ma utim di chia wadofo yi a wo ye ho kanyina ena afi yesi akagine mu eboabo bada acha di sua ho ban enam ye insurance akonya hodo so kono so free ni ya nenya ntiase pfa ye smart child plan any passage plan osomo so nkuyi ho GN life obi abrabo ho hia.
Welcome back to Ghana Great and Strong. And this evening, we are talking about starting and running businesses. And we're dealing with the topic of failure. And I've been trying to let you know, first of all, why I'm dealing with this topic today. Because many people have asked, they want to learn something, or they want to hear from their personal experience and understand what is it that that can be done that will make a business successful. I'm also saying this because failure happens. It happens. And a good percentage of companies that are started end up in failure. Well, there's a message from a gentleman from Accra, Dansuman. It says Michael Grand, Kalital. Okay? He says he appreciates my contribution to business ethics, but he's asking, is it appropriate to start a business with borrowed funds? Well, Michael, yes, it is. As a matter of fact, many people start businesses with borrowed funds. And except that if you borrow money, it comes with the costs. And the costs of the funds must be embedded and must be put into your analysis of what it should take for you to be able to pay the monies back, and so on and so forth. But do businesses borrow? Yes. Even Apple, that is a big giant, now it's becoming $1 trillion company. Apple still borrows money, even though it has a stash of cash somewhere. Okay, so borrowing money is not failure. Borrowing money is not what leads someone to failure. It is how you use the funds that you borrow. That is what matters. And, there's someone that has become quite successful. Bill Gates. Bill Gates. He started, the first company he started with was called Data. It wasn't Microsoft. That company folded up. That company, he tried to analyze big data from traffic tapes. Okay, from traffic, that's what he called Data. That company failed. And he did this along with the gentleman that was his business partner, Mr. Paul Allen. So I just want you to understand that somebody who has now become, hugely successful, he failed. He failed once. Even, many people know about Disney World, and what Disney does. Well, there was somebody called Walt Disney. It was a person's name. Disney is a human being's name. He started a company which he called Laugh-O-Gram Films. Okay, it was an animation company called Laugh-O-Gram Films. That company, that he raised 15,000, back then in the 20th century, which was a lot of money to start that company failed. But he persisted that he had a good idea, and started some new companies, and then he became successful. Now, let me also tell you, many of you have enjoyed eating a chocolate bar, a Hershey chocolate bar. Well, he didn't start out producing chocolate. He started off producing candy of different types. He actually he was fired from apprenticeship with a printer, and then he started several, I believe it was 3 candy-related ventures before he hit on the idea of chocolate. And Hershey bars, Hershey chocolate has become a big deal. So again, failures do happen, but we shouldn't make failure a habit. And then I'll give you one last one. Oprah Winfrey, that many people know. Oprah Winfrey, she started off as in Baltimore in the U.S. in television as a television anchor, someone who does television news and so on and so forth. She was fired from that job. And why was she fired from that job? They said she was too emotional and not right for television. Well, guess what? She used that emotion into her own show and her own program, which actually welcomed emotion, which actually welcomed human expression of emotion, and has become, as we all know, hugely and successful. Okay, so yes, failures do happen, but failures can be overcome. And many of you also know that Dyson, the Dyson. I was going to use another name. But the Dyson machine that is used to clean floors and carpets. Well, this vacuum cleaner man, okay, his name was James Dyson. So that's why we know of the Dyson vacuum cleaner. Well, he started all manner of other prototypes. And he actually developed 5,126 prototypes of this machine before he hit on the one that became successful. And one last one. You know, Mr. Morita, the one who, Akio Morita, the one who started Sony. Well, his first product was a rice cooker. And they said that rice cooker always ended up burning the rice. So it failed. And his venture failed. Well, he persisted. And now Sony is there. So persistence, translating what was considered a negative into a positive in the case of Oprah Winfrey, moving on to find a better product in the case of Bill Gates. Many good things can come out of failure. But again, we should not make failure a habit. When you make it a habit, then you write failure across your chest or your face. When you are clothed in failure, nothing good will come out of it. Nothing good will happen. So I want everybody to understand that indeed, yes, in business is important. But what is even more important is that we understand that failure is something that can happen to us in business, and that failure is something that we should all plan for, so that when it looks like we're hitting problems, when failure looks like it's approaching us, then we will have an antidote. We will know what to do to take care of that difficulty. This is where we are going to leave our program this evening. But before we go, I want to leave you with one quotation. You know, let me put it in here. Someone once says, can he start a business with a capital of 10,000 Ghana cedis? Well, you can start a business with a capital of 500 Ghana cedis, depending on what kind of business. So finally, let me say that Proverbs chapter 20, verse 13 says, do not love sleep, or you will grow poor. Stay awake, and you will have food to spare. Do not love sleep, or you will grow poor. I am saying, do not love sleep, or you will become a failure. This is Ghana Great and Strong. I have been your host. My name is Papa Kwesi Endo.
In the